Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and joining me today in the Brady Dental Care Studios is Scott Marler, Director of the Iowa DOT. Scott, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be with you.
Did you know you are the first person in the Brady Dental Care Studios? These are brand new studios, so I don't know if there's not a plaque for that, but,
well,
congratulations.
They're awesome studios. I'm honored to be the first.
Yeah, first. You have the view of the Capitol right there. We put that fabric over there so it doesn't have too much sound bounce. But
yes, right there, close to my heart.
So I appreciate you coming in. And briefly, if you like the show, guys, it's time to subscribe. It's everywhere. Google Podcasts, iHeart. Scott has already told his entire team. No, I'm just kidding. But make sure to subscribe. Okay, so we want to start with train derailments, which is probably not a topic you anticipated talking a lot about until recently. But February 3rd, there was the East Palestine one. January 19th, there was one at Adams Mill. March 4th, there was one in Springfield. February 21st, there was one in Gothenburg. You know how it goes. Sometimes the news drives these trends, and sometimes, things that we aren't aware of, we're suddenly aware of just because they're in the news. Is this irregular, or is this kind of a normal thing? Trains just derail, and sadly that one had toxic stuff in it.
Yeah, and obviously our hearts go out to all of the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, and certainly they're very much in our thoughts in terms of their recovery and the what is to come for them. So in terms of trains in Iowa, let's just start answering that question by first acknowledging we have a lot of product moving by rail through Iowa.
Kidding.
Okay,
no kidding.
So that's just a fact of life. In fact, it's great for Iowa's economy in the sense that helps us move our product to a global market. And that's really what we're seeing in terms of transportation across Iowa. Every single year, we have dozens of incidents, train-related incidents across the state. In fact, in 2022, as of the count through last October, was about 48 different incidents.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And not all derailments. Okay. So,
right.
So derailments are a subset of that, but for sure we have incidents across the state on an ongoing basis. And one of the things that I wanted to mention to your listeners here today is we have spent quite a bit of time putting together some plans for what would happen if we had some of these incidents happen right here in Iowa, some of these types of derailments. And so we put together a plan specifically focused on kind of the crude oil market in that area. And it really gets at emergency response. How do we work together to ensure that Iowans are kept safe? We also have a provision of state code that kicks in if there ever is a train incident of any kind. In fact, they are required to make a notification to the state of Iowa. We're typically seeing those come through our traffic management center. We actually get those notices through our traffic management center at the DOT. And of course, we're working on the back end with Iowa Homeland Security and with the Iowa DNR to make sure that we're addressing those incidences quickly and efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously the one thing everyone thinks of, right? Yeah. So you're saying this is pretty common, trains derailing. It's just that the East Palestine one, the response to it, I'm not going to put you on the record to see if you liked it or didn't like it, but it's an unfortunate turn of events that one made national news. But derailments are kind of just one of those things that happens.
It's an unfortunate fact that they do happen. We do see them in Iowa as well. And obviously, we're always watching if there's any toxic or hazardous materials that might be on a train. We're watching that very carefully as well.
So as far as you know, or as far as you've seen, no memos, nothing has come across your desk from Homeland Security saying, hey, these are intentional acts. Are you aware of any of that?
I'm not aware of anything like that.
So, okay, got it. So, who knows? Maybe it's happening. But as far as we know, it's not an intentional thing. It's just an unfortunate sequence of events.
That's right.
Got it. So if something does happen in Iowa, because like you mentioned, we have a lot of product that comes through Iowa. It's a main thoroughfare, a lot of train lines. Of course, I grew up on the east side, so we have a lot of train lines over there. What do we do exactly? Hopefully we have a better response than East Palestine does. No offense to anybody there, but obviously that didn't go so well.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that question, Justin, because let's talk a little bit about what happens in Iowa if something like that happens. So one of the strengths of Iowa, we have 99 counties, and within those 99 counties, we have emergency response professionals who are part of the county government system. They are the emergency responder on behalf of a county. And so when we have seen derailments happen in Iowa, they are typically mobilizing right away. I'm not talking about within hours. I'm talking about within minutes, within hours. They're mobilizing as soon as they're aware, and they are enacting immediately emergency response plans. So they're learning if there are hazardous materials on board. They're assessing the damage, and obviously life comes before property. So are human lives at risk?
Right.
And so they're looking to see, have there been any fatalities? Are there any rescue missions that we need to initiate? And that's coming right from your emergency responders right at the county level. Think about our county sheriffs, our fire departments, our local police departments, our Iowa State Patrol. A lot of our law enforcement and just first responders, they're on the scene typically on that life aspect, making sure we're keeping people safe. And the emergency response professionals, meanwhile, are kicking in with the community to say, what might the impacts be to the closest town that's nearby? Or if there's a waterway nearby, how do we stop material from getting into a waterway? So all these plans are kicking in almost immediately at the county level. And then if it's getting bigger for some reason than just a county level, that's where the county emergency response professionals are reaching out to the state to say we might need some assistance in whatever area that might be.
So did this event actually shore up some stuff? Did this give you the opportunity to discuss with your team and say, hey, this happened, it's fresh, it's a fresh event, let's reevaluate what we would do in this situation? And did you learn anything in that process?
Absolutely. The answer is absolutely yes. We always do that. It's just a normal part of our doing business. But as a result of this event, we did take the opportunity to have some very direct conversation about, how's our response looking right now? Are we, we always maintain a level of readiness and preparedness all the time.
Right.
How are we doing there? And is there anything else that we need to really consider as we think about what happened in Ohio? So it did give us the opportunity to revisit some of the plans that we already have in place to make sure that they are laser focused where they need to be.
Yeah, that's good. So moving topics a little bit, I'm glad to hear you're on it because I know it just happened again. So I know that's kind of top of mind for a lot of people. But some listeners wanted to know about this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Yeah. And so, of course, the jobs thing, that's another department. But the infrastructure thing, now keep in mind, back in 2015, I think, we already had the FAST Act, the Obama administration. So a lot of money going to infrastructure. And this one looks like it's going to deliver, you probably have more accurate figures than I do, but $3.4 billion for federal aid highway programs over the next 5 years for Iowa. I believe that number is correct. So is that money going to make its way here? And like the FAST Act or something, like did not enough money come to Iowa, which means this has to happen? Like how much of that's realistically going to make its way here?
This is a great question, and I'm glad that you're interested in this particular topic because I want Iowans to know how the Department of Transportation is putting this money to good work on their behalf. In real terms, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we saw about a 30% increase in our federal aid funding, what we call it federal aid. And so we saw about a 30% increase in that funding in terms of what we had traditionally gotten for federal aid. So that funding began to be put to use immediately by the Iowa Transportation Commission, our 7 commissioners who program the highway projects across the state. That money not only was put to use immediately, but we've been seeing the effect of that over the last couple of years as we've put that money to work. The competing factor there is that we've seen inflationary pressure on our construction projects. And so just last year in 2022, we saw 24% inflation pressure on just our construction projects alone. I'm talking about roads and bridges to build them.
Wow.
So, the federal money was so helpful at a time when we're seeing this inflationary pressure. We were able to keep projects in the 5-year program and not have to delay them perhaps to a later time frame. And we were even able to add a few projects here and there where we could, to in other words, go a little bit further than what we had. You mentioned 2015. Let me make a quick point here.
Yeah, please.
About 2015. Something else happened in 2015 in Iowa, and that is the legislature passed the fuel tax increase in 2015.
That's right.
10 cents per gallon. So that fuel tax adjustment that the legislature passed actually did more in terms of real dollars for Iowa than did this Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act at the federal level. So congratulations to Iowans for really investing in their infrastructure, because it has made a tremendous difference in our state.
Interesting. Now, so obviously fuel tax, I was curious if we were going to get into this. I think this is the best segue, but the fuel tax applies to, vehicles that use fuel.
Right.
So what happens with, I'm seeing Teslas on the road more and more. My neighbor just got a fully electric Jeep. And so I know there's a lot of talk on this issue, right? Because this isn't a new issue. We've seen this coming for years. How do we maintain roads if no one's buying fuel?
Mm-hmm. This is a great question, and let me just, for context,
because I do like nice roads, by the way, for the record. Just
good.
I don't have a hover car yet, so
we aim to deliver that in Iowa for sure. Nice roads, I mean, not the hover cars.
Not the hover cars, right?
In Iowa, currently, we have more than 10,000 electric vehicles registered right now in the state.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's an interesting factoid for you. The predominance of those are actually battery electric vehicles, not the plug-in hybrids. So we actually have more battery electric vehicles in Iowa, out of that roughly 10,000 that are registered, than we do plug-in hybrids.
Wow.
So how do we account for a different kind of fuel, the electricity?
Yeah.
Well, really what has happened is back in 2019, the legislature, foreseeing that this was coming, they passed a new law in 2019 specific to electric vehicle registrations. So they had the department do an analysis to say, kind of in a revenue neutral way, what would a traditional vehicle spend on fuel versus what would an electric vehicle need to spend in the future. And so that resulted in an increase in the registration for an electric vehicle. And it's about $130 additional per year for the electric vehicles. And that's how the legislature has specifically addressed that loss of revenue from not having internal combustion engines that buy traditional fuel to the transition to particularly battery electric vehicles.
So the fuel tax, because people are filling up, depending on what you have, every other week. That's a lot of money. Is $130 annually for an EV? Does that make up for it? Is that pretty much is that the same, or are you losing money there?
Yeah, we think our analysis is we think it's about a wash.
Okay.
So we think it is making up the difference. There's one other thing we did in Iowa that's a little bit unique. Some of your listeners might think, what about those people who are traveling through Iowa who don't register their vehicle in Iowa?
It's a great point.
What about them?
Yep.
So the legislature did something additional with that. They actually passed, if there is a commercial outlet that is offering electricity for sale for a vehicle, there is an excise tax that is attached to that charging station. So it's 0.026 cents, to get specific, 0.026 cents per kilowatt hour, and that excise tax is only available at commercial pumps or commercial charging stations. So, if you're charging your vehicle at your house or at your residence, you're not going to see that excise tax does not apply. It's only for commercially available charging stations.
So, that gives Iowans a lot of incentive then to build solar panels on your house or whatever, or a wind turbine if you can legally get away with that. I don't know what that looks like. Some farms maybe can do that, obviously. But that gives Iowans a lot of vested interest in upgrading their properties to solar so that they don't have to pay at these stations.
For sure.
Obviously, if they're charging off the grid from energy from their house, they wouldn't be taxed on that outside of what they're being taxed, for the utilities.
Well said. And you're tying into a great Iowa story here, Justin, and I want to just take a moment to highlight, which is already as a state, we are more than 60% renewable in terms of power generation.
Right.
The wind farms and other things that you see around the state. This is a tremendous story for Iowa in terms of helping to ensure that we are making decisions that are good for Iowa today, but also for generations to come.
Yeah, I've always wanted, and I don't have it yet, but I've always wanted, when you're traveling in Iowa, a lot of people, you probably know this, a lot of people don't know the reason we have wind turbines here is because of weather. Like, you can't do wind turbines in other areas because people don't have those weather patterns that actually drive that energy production. But I thought it would always be really cool if those little spots there's a spot in northern Iowa on 35, there's a spot in western on 80. There are probably some others that I'm not thinking of right off the top of my head. I always thought it would be incredible if the rest areas or little pull-offs in those areas had a charging station, and it would basically have something that would be like your car's charging off the wind you see being produced right there. I thought that would always be really cool. So hopefully someone's listening and gets that done. So just real quick on the funding there, I know there's this SSB 1124. Another listener wanted to know about that. Property taxes changes. Does this concern the Iowa DOT at all? I'm not familiar with this, so I was hoping you'd be.
Well, the funding for our state's transportation network, our multimodal network, not just roadways, it comes from ultimately what's called the Road Use Tax Fund. And that we are fortunate in Iowa that we have a diversity of revenue coming into that fund. So it's not just fuel tax, it's also vehicle registrations, and the annual registration for vehicles, that sticker that you put on your license plate.
Right. Yep.
So those sources of funding, we have a very robust revenue source for infrastructure in Iowa through that road use tax fund.
So this is kind of a non-issue.
It's really not a major issue for this.
That's good. I just wanted to bring some clarification to that. Part of this infrastructure bill is $432 million for bridge replacement and repairs over 5 years. According to your team, they sent me an email ahead of time. There are 1,481 bridge structures in Iowa that are basically wood. So does this $432 million start to replace those wooden bridges, and do they need to be replaced?
Yeah,
I think people who don't work with wood don't understand that wood's actually structurally very strong stuff. So does this, are you going to be replacing all these things with that money?
Yeah, that's a fun fact that we have that many wooden bridge structures in Iowa, for sure.
And these aren't all in the covered bridge category, right?
Right, that's right. So let's talk a little bit about our bridge structures in Iowa. We have nearly 24,000 bridges statewide. Okay, so if you look at the number of bridges across all states in our country, we are 7th in the nation for the number of bridges. And for a state our size, that's a lot of infrastructure. And it's because we have such an extensive farm-to-market system. It's really important to get our product to a global market. So that's really why we have such the extensive infrastructure that we have. One of the reasons, I should say.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's very important to us to make sure that every bridge is functioning well. And by the way, there's only two types of bridges, a safe bridge or a closed bridge. That's the only two types of bridges that exist. And I want to make that clear. So
I like that.
Yes.
So you don't have to guess when you're driving over bridges. Is this one going to yeah.
Never. We inspect bridges across the state every 2 years. This is one of the federal requirements, is that we inspect all the bridges across the entire state. So that's done every couple of years. And with these wooden bridges as well, if we find issues, we deal with those issues. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has helped to provide some additional dedicated bridge funding for that. In fact, it nearly doubled the pot of money for those bridges. A lot of that money still gets pushed out to our county systems. In particular, counties own the vast majority of the bridges. And the county engineers, they do have difficult decisions to make when it comes to any bridge in their county, because of the hundreds that they might have jurisdiction over, maybe they only have enough funding for just a few bridges in terms of replacement or major repairs. So they have to kind of make some strategic decisions. It becomes a very difficult decision in terms of which bridges to focus on. And a lot of times those lower volume bridges are not, we have bridges in Iowa that carry, for example, maybe 35 vehicles a day. Those may not be at the top of a county engineer's list when they have so many much more critical bridges on their list.
So I want to go to something that made news. I want to say it was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. This whole COVID thing has blurred the last 3 years of my life together. I have no idea what happened.
Well
but
said.
Somehow we ended up in this room together. So there was this, I think it made the register, it made news of some kind. It was that big sign that said road or lane closed for no effing reason. I don't know, do you remember seeing this in the news?
I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, so
I hope it's not one of our signs in Iowa.
It was one of those like road closure signs, road closed, moved to, it was programmable, one of those.
Yeah.
And so someone with probably knowledge had gone and changed the sign message to like road closed, merge left or something to road closed for no effing reason. But they had the actual word up there. You know, we're here on the Iowa podcast, we're not going to use that word, but it does bring some good questions because, you know, people are, you know, commuting. We just went down through southern Iowa for a little weekend trip. Mm-hmm. And there's always that question, why? Why are they blocking off these long 2-mile stretches and you see absolutely nothing there? Nothing there. And so it's like, could we just maybe like wait on that until you're ready? Like, why the long distance and why are they blocking it off so early? Can't they just block off small little sections and just move their workspace? What's up with this?
The great question. And I know it's a frustration on a lot of our minds, you know, as you travel, as you say, and you see this, you know, you don't see workers out there and you're wondering what is going on? Why do we have all this area blocked off? And a lot of what you're seeing is, and keep in mind, what did we talk about earlier with wind? The weather, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of times our contractors, when they are awarded a job to go do some road construction, they plan out pretty specifically what they're intending to do to that stretch of road in that lane. And one of the key items that they plan out, we call it traffic control. Mm-hmm. Those are all the barricades and the cones and the signs and the electronic signs that really are meant to direct drivers into a different lane as well as communicate what's happening. And so that's really meant to keep people safe, all that traffic control. And I don't just mean the drivers themselves, but also the workers who are working in that zone. And it's unfortunate that we see fatalities from workers in our construction zone. In fact, in 2020, Iowa DOT sadly and tragically lost 2 of our own employees in work zones. That's right.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yes, where they were hit and killed by a motorist.
Oh, my.
So the safety of not only the traveling public, but also the workers who are in that work zone is very much on our minds. Yeah. Typically what happens, and I need to speak generically because every project is really different.
Of course.
Okay. But typically what happens is a contractor will mobilize, meaning they set up all the traffic control, all the cone signs and sensors and everything. And then once they're mobilized, they're ready to go to work, but perhaps a rainstorm passes through. And maybe the working conditions are such that they need to delay. And then they're faced with a question, well, do we tear down all the traffic control that we just put up, or do we wait a day for it to dry out a little bit and then go back? And so really that decision is made kind of in real time with the project engineer who's on site with them. And so it becomes at some point uneconomical to just tear everything out every time that there's some type of a delay, typically related to weather-related delay. That's often why you will see a work zone set up and no one's actually going through it. But there can be other factors too, where if a contractor encountered something unexpected and maybe they need to take additional soil samples before their work proceeds or something like that, where they need to do some additional testing on site in real time. And maybe it takes, I don't know any particular project that I'm thinking of with this, but maybe it takes a day to get the expert out there to make a judgment call. There's a lot of reasons just like that where it leads to unexpected delays. But since we're on this topic, let me segue to technology a little bit. One of the things that we're trying to do and really deploy around the state is worker presence technology, so that if a worker is actively working in the work zone, we want that to go 2 ways. Not only do we want that worker to have knowledge that maybe an errant vehicle is infringing into the work zone, it could be dangerous. So we want an alert system that would alert workers in the work zone. So that's one thing. Yeah. But we want to go the other way as well, where travelers who are using their navigation systems, perhaps they're getting a notice as well.
Right.
There's workers present in this work zone, so that you have first firsthand knowledge that they're there. So we're trying to leverage technology in a couple of ways there, Justin, to make that better for everybody.
So would that like go to Google Maps and Waze and some of the older cars aren't updated to the second, but some of the newer ones can have that functionality.
That's right.
So that would come from your department. How would there be basically a supervisor on site that would have an app that could turn that on and off?
Well, what we're hoping to do is actually have the technology kind of self-reporting so that if you're a worker with perhaps a smart vest and it's smart vest is lit up, it's just reporting, I'm here. Meanwhile, Google and Waze are consuming that data feed from the department that says, yes, there's workers present there.
Because I can see how something like that, if left on all the time, people just start to ignore it, right? But if it's automatic and it's real, I can see that changing behavior. Like, slow down workers present. When I'm in a work zone, I do slow down because it's, there are cones I don't want to hit.
Great
obviously.
answer, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody listening. But I can see why there would be a little bit of an enhanced caution. I don't know if that's the right word. If your device is saying, hey, dude, there are actually people up in front of you that are working. You're going to kill someone if you don't. I can see why that would change attitudes.
People are still, it's a sad reality, Justin, but people are still driving too fast. They're driving distracted. They're driving impaired, and they're driving unbelted. We're still seeing these behaviors that lead to very bad outcomes.
I don't understand the unbelted thing. It is so weird. It is like a muscle memory for me. I don't understand why people's brains are so broken they're not putting a belt on. Like, you didn't ask me to say this. You're not paying me to say this. I just think it's bizarre. It's I think the technology component's really interesting. I had no idea you guys were working on that. It's really fascinating. So there's like centralized, in my head, there's like centralized work and spread out work. And I'm just thinking like, there are so many active work zones sometimes. My head just goes to, why don't you just consolidate everybody in one area and get it done? Now, I'm glad you pointed out like the, like every time it rains, you're like, well, do we tear down the whole site and then rebuild it tomorrow, which adds cost. That also adds delay in time. That's going to stretch out your project a little further. That makes sense. I didn't even think about that. But what about like consolidation? Can't we like get all the crews to focus on this one stretch? Like for example, Iowa City, like that stretch on 80 that I think has been under construction for like, 1850 before, car, I think, you know what I mean? It's always on. So it's like, can we consolidate people and get this stuff done? But why is there a method here that people are spread out? Why are we doing it that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, as the director of the DOT, I very much love when I drive around and I see the orange cones and the barrels, because to me, what that signifies is the state is moving forward. We're making progress. I love that. And my mind immediately goes to safety of the workers as well as safety of the travelers who are going through that work zone. Can they navigate it safely? And is everyone going to arrive where they need to go safely? So that's what's mostly on my mind. Yeah, so we talk a lot about consolidating particularly the information so that travelers can make better choices. What it really gets to is choice. Like if you're traveling to Iowa City from Des Moines, you want to make sure that your trip you're going to be able to get there with minimal disruption, right? And as safely as you can.
Right.
511. I know we talk about it a lot at the Iowa DOT. The 511 website is your best friend in that regard because it's telling you real time what's happening with our work zones. Are they open? Are they closed? Is it just a shoulder? Am I going to see a backup there? These are the things that you can find out on the 511 website. If you look statewide at the nearly 900 projects we did last year, by the way, that were valued at nearly $1.3 billion. That's all in county, city, DOT, everything. The work is massive. It's happening across the entire state. So we have a fantastic construction community and contractor community in Iowa, and they are dispersed working on this whole thing. And that, by the way, they do all hands on deck. We try to accelerate projects as much as we can. So there's something we call ABC, Accelerated Bridge Construction, which is a way to get a bridge built a lot quicker so that the inconvenience to the traveling public is minimized. Sometimes we'll use incentives and disincentives on different projects because particularly those heavier traffic volumes, it's just urgent that we get a traffic area opened up. If you're in a very high tourist area like like Okoboji, for example. We limit the season in which you can actually do construction. Memorial Day to Labor Day, you're not going to be doing road construction in there because that season is so intense with just moving people through the lakes.
Yeah.
So those are some of the ways we try to mitigate some of that you're talking about, but it's on our minds too. We want people to get there.
And a lot of people don't understand that that's actually money that you lose. That's taxable money that the state loses when there are choke points and when traffic can't flow freely. I think when Minneapolis lost 35W Bridge, I was living up there at the time. I don't remember what the number was, but it was something like the city was losing $2 million a day every time that bridge was down. So that money does directly affect your budget if things aren't running smoothly.
I'll add not only our budget, but there's soft costs to travelers. You think about the time you spend sitting, if there's a delay, sitting in congestion. Nobody wants that. Right?
Yeah.
It's costing you money too as a traveler.
Absolutely. So last couple seconds here, the digital ID, where are we on that? Someone asked about, there's Real ID and that'll probably be rolling out in the year 3000 because since I know for at least 7 years, we keep pushing it back every year. But let's talk about real things like, that'll actually happen.
Yeah.
It's joking, of course.
Sure.
Is the last 10 seconds, the digital ID, how do you do that? Is that online yet? How do we get those?
Mobile ID, we're in the final phase of testing now. We had some security items we had to address.
Yep.
Later this year, you're going to see it unroll.
Really?
Mobile ID on your phone, yes.
Okay, and now will an officer or people accept that, or do we need to have the plastic one with us at all times?
For those who fly, TSA is already prepped, and if you see their banners at the airport, they're prepped to begin accepting the mobile ID. You're going to see it in your Apple Wallet, your Google Wallet, your Samsung Wallet. We're prepping this for later this year to be released through the Iowa DOT, but it will be a secure, fully digital version of your driver's license on your device.
That's incredible. So I would be able to go to whatever American city and come back without ID, all on my phone, as long as my phone's charged.
There will be vendors who will accept it and vendors who will not.
Got it. So we got to wait. It's not quite national, but in the state, can I use that as identification for an officer?
It doesn't. What we say is it doesn't replace your plastic card because that's in law. Your plastic card, you need to have that with you.
Got it.
It supplements your plastic card is what it does. So it's kind of like the analogy would be your credit card. Most of us still carry that plastic card with us, but we have it on our phone as well. It's just like that in the sense that it doesn't replace your plastic card, but it supplements it, and it's going to be awesome.
So we're still in this, it's going to help, but we're still in kind of a transitionary period. We can't completely phase out plastic. Scott Marler, director of the Iowa DOT, thank you so much for coming in here on the Iowa podcast. How do people, you mentioned 511, how do people get information about what your department is doing and current road conditions, and how do they stay safe?
501ia.org. Go there. That's where you can find current road conditions. Reach out to us anytime at iowadot.gov. We'd be happy to answer your questions and address your concerns. Thank you very much for having me, Justin.
Scott Marler, director of the Iowa DOT. Thank you for coming on the Iowa podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.